should be it. All right, here we go. Ladies and gentlemen. Sorry, a little trying to make sure I have everything. Not used to holding a microphone here, but here we go. What's that? Thank you. I've always wanted to have this one. No. I watch preachers like they're really flamboyant with their microphones. I'm like, how do you gotta have a really good mic to pick up from all. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Hey, so welcome. I know we've got some out sick. We've got some out for kids camp, and so that's okay. We've got what we've got is super important tonight, and so we're recording that, and we're going to push that out to everyone who's not here because I think it's important that we get what we're talking about tonight. Just a couple of things. You saw some different things on the table back there. This is starting to get real. Like we have stuff here that, and so. You maybe saw the little cones, the CR cones, kind of matches our Road to Recovery series that we've done. And so we've got a whole box full of these, and we'll use those as just kind of swag merch to hand out. That'll be cool. Our Celebrate Recovery at the Well pins. So, yeah, there we go. You maybe saw the little business card type thing. The idea behind these is that everybody can have a handful of these with them at all time. And you come across someone who... you're like, hey, I would love to invite this person to Celebrate Recovery. You just pull this out. It's got all the information. The only thing I would maybe suggest, it does have, we have a cr@thewellnaz.org email address, so that's on there. But I would maybe encourage you to put your contact information on the back and say, hey, I'll be there. Reach out to me. Would love to know if you're coming, that kind of thing. So we've got a bunch of these, so feel free to take a handful of those. And then... we've got also a flyer. If you want to take any flyers and hang up, I'm going to go around to some places, start putting these up tomorrow, so feel free to grab a couple. I haven't printed off a ton right now, but we can if we need to. You guys, I don't know if I was supposed to do this or not, but you guys are getting a sneak peek. You guys are getting a sneak peek of the logo here. That doesn't actually officially launch until the 18th, so you guys get a little bit of a sneak peek. So if I get in trouble, then it is what it is. I don't know. Yeah, thank you very much. Other thing, just want to throw out before we jump in. Just got an email shortly before we came here, from someone from the Union County Drug-Free Coalition, I believe it is, or from the health department, actually, with an invitation to be a part of on August 29th. That's a Thursday, and it's from 11 to 1. They actually have a drug overdose awareness day at Partners Park, and so they've invited us to be there to kind of just have a presence and whatnot and let people know about our services. So that's kind of cool. So I'll plan to go there. If anybody else happens to be free in the middle of a Thursday, then I'll send out an email with that information when I send out video links and whatnot. And so, yeah, would love to have more people present as well. And then that evening, they also do a drug overdose memorial service at the Avalon, and so invited us to that as well. So, like I said, I'll send out that information through the email, but just want to let you know that. Kind of cool. There's our word is getting out. I'm meeting with a guy tomorrow morning from, where are we at here? From the Gathering Church, right down here, across the railroad track, whatever. Yeah, by the, I don't know if there's still, I think there's a gun shop or something, whatever. But he reached out to me and said that they were looking at starting a sort of a Celebrate Recovery, kind of not officially Celebrate Recovery, but kind of there's like a SWADO Celebrate Recovery program that they were looking to start in the fall because they hadn't found anything in our community. And so when they heard about us, they're like, well, we don't necessarily need to do two things, and so I'm going to have coffee with him tomorrow and see how we may partner and things like that. So I say those things just to say that word is getting out there, and so there's hopefully some excitement building, and yeah, We're plugging away. This is getting real. So yeah, Bob. Yeah, yeah. Yes, you're stressing me out. Yes, when he starts going over the 35-minute mark, we can like stop it. No, I'm just kidding. Oh, you're talking about me when I was talking. Okay, I thought you were talking about Pastor Brian. He's not here. He's at camp. We can give him a hard time, not me. Thank you. That's true. I'll edit that out. I know how to cut things out of videos. I know how to do a deep fake. yeah, another Pastor Brian that we would do that for. Yeah, not Richardson. Cool. Any questions about things, swag, materials? All good? Okay. Well, I don't have my book with me to do our principles. Can I see a book here? Okay. Are you guys good? Is this book 4, I assume? Page 10. I actually have the screen on, but I didn't bring up my clicker to failure. Page 10. Here we go. Realize I'm not God. I admit that I'm powerless to control my tendency to do the wrong thing and that my life is unmanageable. Earnestly believe that God exists, that I matter to Him, and that He has the power to help me recover. Consciously choose to commit all my life and will to Christ's care and control. Openly examine and confess my faults to myself, to God, and to someone I trust. Voluntarily submit to every change God wants to make in my life and humbly ask Him to remove my character defects. Evaluate all my relationships, offer forgiveness to those who have hurt me, and make amends for harm I've done to others, except when to do so would harm them or others. Reserve a daily time with God for self-examination, Bible reading, and prayer in order to know God and His will for my life and to gain the power to follow His will, and yield myself to God to be used to bring this good news to others, both by my example and by my words. All right, so tonight, what we're going to do as we begin to get really close, there's going to be some opportunities to kind of, we're going to practice dress rehearsal type things. And so tonight what we're going to talk specifically about is open share groups, okay? And I know we've talked briefly about open share groups in past sessions, but as we're moving and we're getting ready to launch, the reality is that we've been doing step studies for a really long time. I think this is 22, something like that. We've been doing step studies, and when we launch, we will be doing open share rather than step studies. Okay, and so because of that, we want to make sure that we're kind of on the same page for what that open share group looks like. What are some of the similarities? What are some of the differences on those open share group? That way, when we're ready to launch on the 28th, we have a really good idea of what open share group is. Again, because we've been immersed in step studies, we just want to make sure that we're clear on what those differences are. There's similarities as well, but there are some differences. Okay, so Cindy and I are going to tag team this a little bit, and so I'm going to share just some of the kind of the differences between open share and step study, and then Cindy's going to talk about the similarities and also specifically the guidelines and things like that and how that plays out. And then after that, we're going to show just I got a couple of videos that are kind of funny because they are like corny, like skit type things about broken guidelines and what not to do in open share groups. And so we'll play those, and then we'll just have a little bit of kind of Q&A time. And then once we're done with that, we may go into that 7 o'clock hour in this. But once we do that, we're going to break off into our groups like we typically do. But rather than talk about our step study questions from our participant guide, we're going to kind of model an open share group, okay? Does that make sense? Clear as mud. It'll make sense when we get there. All right? So what are the differences between open share and step study? Well, as we've talked about in previous kind of times together, open share groups are essentially open to everyone. That's the idea, is that everyone who comes for large group on Wednesday nights is going to stick around and go to an open share group. That's the idea. So if we think about the funnel we talked about, there's the large group, and then there's the open share group right after that, and that's kind of for everybody. And then as you focus in, as you narrow down, as folks get more and more invested and are ready to take those next levels, that's when we will invite them into a step study group that won't meet on Wednesday nights, right? That's the one that will be a different time throughout the week. So open share is that there's an open share group for everyone. And so the first time, again, I know this is repeating some things we've talked about, but that's okay. The first time that someone is here for Celebrate Recovery, we will ask them to go to a Newcomers 101 group where we'll talk through what it looks like to be a part of an open share group. But then after they've attended that, then everybody is invited to go to an open share group. Open share groups, like the step studies here, that'll be gender specific, guy and girl. We're going to start with one male, one female group, just a mixed issue, just to get us off, get us going. And my hope, though, is that pretty quickly we're ready to start a couple more groups. So again, gender specific, open share groups right after large group. The other thing that is kind of different is really the big difference is the content or the discussion that happens in the open share group, okay? So as a step study, we have what has guided our discussion in the step studies has been our participant guides. The 5 to 10 or however many questions it is each week, that has been kind of the discussion starting point for our step studies. Open share groups are very different in the way that they're directed. Okay, there are basically two discussion starting points, prompts, I guess, if you will, for an open share group, and those are: one is the focus question from that night's lesson. So if any of you have one of the half-sheet bulletin inserts from any of the lessons, if you have any of those handy with you, I didn't bring any in here, and I should have, but I did not. If you have that, on the very bottom of it, there's a gray text box, and that's the leader's focus question. Okay, that's a question that will be used as a prompt for the open share group. And essentially, the way this works is that open share group participants have the option of answering that question, reflecting on that question, or, as the name of the group suggests, it's an open share opportunity. Okay, so whereas our step studies have been very focused on the questions that we're going through, like that's been the focus, open share groups are really a lot more open-ended. There is a focus question. If someone is like, this is all brand new to me, I have no idea what I could possibly say just off the top of my head, the focus question gives them something to kind of think about and respond to. Or, again, it can be open share, meaning you can have folks who are just kind of sharing the struggles that they've had that week, or sharing the victories that they've had that week, sharing whatever it is that's on their heart, kind of related to their recovery. And so it's an either-or kind of thing. You can do the focus question, or you can respond to the open share, okay? And again, this is the same kind of format where, and Cindy's going to talk about those similarities here, basically, though, where each person has an opportunity to share, but not everyone has an opportunity to share, right? So the way this will kind of look like, and we'll model this when we break off, is we will start with introductions, and that's where we start. We really start using our CR introductions. I'm a grateful believer in Jesus who struggles with bitterness and cynicism. My name is Josh. And then we go around and we have those introductions. Then what will happen is we will read through the guidelines. Those guidelines are extremely important for every single group gathering. We read over those so that we're reminded of them. And then the leader or co-leader, each group will ideally have a leader and a co-leader. Leader or co-leader will read that focus question and then give everyone an opportunity to respond. Again, you can respond to focus question or you can just open share while also staying within your 3 to 5 minutes, right? Okay? And then ultimately ending with the serenity prayer. That's the way that we're going to kind of wrap up our open share group. So, again, the main difference between step study and open share when it comes to the content and the discussion that happens is step study is extremely focused with questions that you're working through. Open share is very open-ended. Okay, there is a focus question if someone wants to or needs like a more specific prompt, but there really is an opportunity for open share to happen. Okay, so that's kind of the main differences between open share and step study. All right, but as we'll see as we're going through kind of the format, the way it works, the way it's laid out, what everyone, those guidelines, there's a whole lot of similarities as well. All right, and so Cindy is going to come and talk just about those similarities. All right, you got your mic there. Super. I don't remember if I turned it on for you.
Hello?
There it is.
Okay. So we have spent a lot of time talking about the small group guidelines. We read them at the beginning of each of our step study groups, but let's take a little bit deeper dive into these because even though we're very familiar with them, when we move to the open share after our large group, when we launch Celebrate Recovery, we're going to have people who maybe have never heard this before, right? And we want to be able to guide and to assist people in understanding these. So with our step study groups, as Josh said, we're working through each of these lessons with these focus questions, and it's to help us work out our own hurts, habits, and hang-ups through the 12 steps. And that's what the step study does. But with the open share, people are going to be sharing just anything and everything, and it becomes even more critical. This is probably in my not so humble opinion probably, but it becomes even more critical for us to adhere to those small group guidelines. So let's just remind ourselves of those, okay? If you have this week's book, it's page 14. First, keep your sharing focused on your own thoughts and feelings. Limit your sharing to 3 to 5 minutes. When people are in a group, we may have some people who already know each other in a group. They came together with a friend, and they may walk in and see someone they didn't expect to see here, that they have some sort of maybe tense relationship with or some challenges with. And so it might be that they want to share, on behalf of someone else in a way that we might know, right? So it's really important that people really focus on their own thoughts and feelings because we have to each own our stuff, right? And that's how we're going to help people to do that. Also, the 3 to 5 minutes is so critical so that there isn't one person controlling the group. And I know Josh bought us some, were those sand timers? Okay. But maybe two, for those who have like smartwatches or your smartphone, even just setting a timer, and so that we don't have one person who is trying to dominate the entire group. Second, there is no crosstalk. Crosstalk is when two individuals engage in conversation, excluding all others. Each person is free to express his or her own feelings without interruptions. Those little sidebar conversations that can occur, we've all been a part of them, right? Somebody says something in Bible study and you're sitting next to them, and all of a sudden you're talking, you're like, oh, I just read about a book about this. And you start, because you want to share. But in the open share groups, there's going to be a variety of people with a variety of backgrounds and a variety of experiences. Some may be very similar to ours, and some may be very, very different. And something might pop into your head that would be helpful to them. I feel like the crosstalk is very closely related to we are not here to fix anyone, right? Because we may know that, oh, wait, your theology is way off. And Josh and I were talking about this. Was that Sunday, I think? That, it's really hard when you know the word and somebody's talking about something and theologically they're being misguided. And we don't want that for anyone, but the open share group is not the place for that, and especially in cross-talking. And then linked to that is we are not here to fix one another. I don't know about you, but don't you wish you could just fix everybody? So they wouldn't have the hurt. We don't want to have the hurts, habits, and hang-ups, and we don't want anyone else to. And as Christians, when we see people hurting, we care. We truly care, and that compassion and empathy as Christians is so important. But it's more important for people to own where they are and what's happening, and that Jesus can do the fixing, not us. Anonymity and confidentiality are basic requirements. What is shared in the group stays in the group. The only exception is when someone threatens to injure themselves or others. When I was leading CR in one of the churches I pastored, we would read this every week, and about the 6th week, a woman named Sherry, who's now passed away, she said, oh, do you mean what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas? And I said, exactly. And there was this collective oh, because anonymity and confidentiality might be things people don't really understand. And so I will never forget that moment, that hadn't clicked for several people until she said that. But that's really what it is. It's so important for us, especially as leaders, that not only what we're hearing in our step study groups and caring for each other in that way, but we are going to encounter people who have never been able to trust anyone. And for them to begin to trust us in a way that they can truly share the pain that's in their lives and on their hearts, that's going to be the beginning of them being able to change and to begin to trust Jesus, right? And so that part is going to be so important, that we model it and that we hold people accountable for it. And then offensive language has no place in a Christ-centered recovery group. Well, let me tell you, you're probably going to hear some things, all right? And the messier our ministry gets here, the better it gets. That's another thing about just probably my opinion. But we may hear some words, and we may gently have to remind people that is not Christ-honoring, and this is a Christ-centered group, and that we would appreciate that they refrain from using those words. If that's their vocabulary, that's not going to happen overnight. All right? And so we have to show patience and tolerance for that. And so those are our guidelines that we've been following, and there's going to be the exact same guidelines for our groups, but we get to be a part of helping maintain that for everyone. Yes, Karen. Yeah. Absolutely. Saying hello to someone or smiling at someone, but personally, until there's a relationship, I always would wait then until they made a more advanced interaction with me, like, oh, hi, Cindy, it's really nice to see you, right? Especially if there's other people with them. But acknowledging and saying hello to someone isn't breaking any confidentiality. but because ignoring them then might be like, oh, well, I'm good enough in the CR group, but I'm not good enough at Walmart for them, kind of thing. So it is a balancing act for us as leaders. Yeah.
Can I tag on? Yeah. Oh, that's a great idea, Dave. The question was regarding confidentiality and anonymity. Anonymity is when the inevitable happens when we see someone who's a part of our CR kind of out in the community, Walmart or something. What is the extent of that anonymity and confidentiality in terms of going up to them, talking to them, and whatnot? And so that was, thank you, Dave. That was kind of the question there. I think there's also a way to, like you said, you can to talk to them without necessarily like, hey, remember me from Celebrate Recovery, right? That kind of thing, where it's kind of a thing. And I think that brings up something else that I wanted to, as you asked that, is the other inevitability is that in we're a growing community, but we're still kind of a small town feel. Chances are there's going to be someone who comes in to Celebrate Recovery who you know from somewhere. And so maintaining that anonymity and confidentiality is important as well. So maybe it's someone you work with. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there. And so what this looks like is then at the workplace, not saying, hey, it was so great to see you at Celebrate Recovery last week, right? Just simple things like that are natural, like you're just talking about, hey, I just saw you. It's not, we never want to make the announcement that someone else is a part of Celebrate Recovery, right? If they bring it up and they talk about it, then by all means, right? Or, you can talk about you being a part of Celebrate Recovery all you want, but we're not outing someone else. Does that make sense? Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So I'm going to repeat that in my own words because I don't. So in terms of in the discussion group, when our body language communicates things as well, what does that look like? How do we go with that? I think that's something that we're not very good at times because our body language can also be a form of kind of crosstalk or judging or fixing or just anything like that. I think that's just one of the things that we have to train ourselves, right? To be an active listener. When we watch these videos, there'll be some where like the body language of what happens like is one of those things that comes up there. That shaking of the head, things like that. So that's just a conscious choice that I think that we have to learn is being active listeners, non-judgmental listeners, right? Who are not cross-talking just without talking at all. So I think that's very important. And again, we get to model that, right? We as the leaders get to model that. And then that kind of leads into when some of these guidelines are broken, and they're going to be broken, right? It's inevitable that these guidelines will be broken. It's one of those things where we extend grace, and we also are smart about how we correct those. And I would say nearly always lean towards correcting in private afterwards, right? Just the embarrassment that would happen in the midst of this group where you have to call someone out for breaking one of these guys, like that, it's just not worth it, right? And so, but you can always pull someone aside and say, hey, when you mentioned that, like that probably was borderline crosstalk, and maybe here's some other ways that you can actively listen without responding, things like that. So there is room for some of that. Correcting the guidelines. I would say 99% of the time, though, that space is not in the midst of those. Are there extreme examples where you're like, well, we got to put a stop to this? There could be, yeah. There definitely could be. do you have an example of that? I'm
Yes,
just trying to think
actually, I do. So if someone is getting more and more agitated, having a lot of anxiety, and they're sharing, or someone else is sharing, and it's creating anxiety for them, then you're going to start sensing that. Or if someone is like extremely angry and they start escalating and they're yelling, it can be helpful, and this is one of the reasons for co-leaders, is for one of the leaders to just say, you know, I can see that this is really upsetting you. Would it be helpful if we just went out for a few minutes and then the group can continue? And I've never had someone say no to that. It's more like, oh, you know, like, yes, and do that. And so that certainly can happen.
I think that the offensive language part there is another. There might be extreme instances where it becomes vulgar to this, like, whereas like it's triggering to somebody else or multiple other people who are in the group. I think there's certainly room to, okay, I think that's going a little bit too far. Let's maybe wrap that up or
Remember our guidelines.
remember our guidelines. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Christy. So the question there is, yeah, how do you cut someone off when they have gone through gone past the 5 minutes? Do you have any?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you notice someone is getting close to the 5 minutes and they take a little breath or in their, I mean, some people can keep talking without breathing, right? I mean, we all know those people. Maybe that's me, I don't know. But when they get to a place where it kind of is a natural closure.
That was crosstalk.
A really good
Crosstalk,
example of
Dave.
what not to do with crosstalk. Yes. But if they get to a place where there's a natural break, it is okay for the leader or the co-leader to gently say, I just wanted to let you know you have about 30 seconds left or a minute left if they're, need that.
I think it's also probably a good practice, and I know in the guys' subset we haven't done this, but I think the open share groups would be a great opportunity to start when we're talking at the beginning, introductions, the guidelines, things like, as a leader, co-leader, like you have a universal, like you have 1 minute left signal that's maybe just like a pointing at the watch, just so we know. Just I think in one of the videos I'm going to show, they have an alarm set for like 4 minutes as a 1 minute. It's obnoxious, and I wouldn't suggest that. But just from the very beginning, say, hey, as you're sharing, if you are getting, when you reach the 4 minute mark, I'm going to point at my wrist and that just let you know that you have 1 minute left and you need to wrap up. Here's like, because I'm a non-conflict, non-confrontational type of person. I'm an Enneagram 9. If you know anything about the Enneagram, it's just I don't do conflict, and so this idea of like having to like blurt out and cut off some like you got to stop, like that's terrifying to me. But I think if at the very beginning of every single session, it's hey, for everyone, when we're a minute away from the 5 minutes, I'm going to point at my watch. And I've laid that out there, and then it's really easy for me to do that. I'm touching, watching, I don't know what's happening there. So, but making that signal very clear and announcing it at the beginning of every group, I think, is totally appropriate. And not making it be this obnoxious alarm, because that's obnoxious. Ain't nobody got time for that. Yeah. Yeah, great question. Question is if you only have a few participants in your group and there's plenty of time to kind of allow people to talk more than once past that 5 minutes, do we do that? Do we end early? End early. Because it's in that, I think, in my opinion, is when we have those longer opportunities, that's when the conversations go off the rail and move beyond what's helpful in a recovery open share group. So by all means, end early. and then you break, you end, and then that's when, when there's time left, if they have spouses here or other family that's around, they're waiting for them, then coffee available, just hanging out, that casual conversation. But I would say yes, just one time around. Don't give other opportunities to do that, because you start giving that space, and the conversation can go off the rails. And yeah, great. That's a great question, though. Yep. Ooh, yeah. Will everyone have a copy of the Serenity Prayer? Yes. Is it? It's not on the. It's not on the handouts. That's a great question. It can. I'm putting this in my notes, Dave. I don't know why they don't have that on the back of the. Yes, we'll figure out a way to give everyone the Serenity Prayer. Just making myself notes here. Any other questions? Yep. That, yeah. Yep. So question is the leader focus question. That is, how does doing a daily inventory help you in your recovery thing? And what's the relevance to someone who's not familiar with this? So that question comes from the lesson from that night. So they will have just heard the idea of a daily inventory in the large group teaching, and then they'll be discussing that. So yeah, good. You guys have great questions. Yeah. 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 So on testimony nights, what would be the leader focus question, study question? Have you seen good? I mean, here's what I like, and this is just what I had in mind, is I would, based on that testimony for the night, I would just jot down a question like, oh, this is something that's good there. Is that kind of what you?
Yes, we just took whoever was doing the testimony and whatever the main topic was, then we would develop one question out of that in talking with the person giving the testimony, and share that with the leaders of the men's and women's groups, so that the focus question was the same for both.
That's, yeah, good. Because idea, and especially for our testimonies, that I will see those ahead of time as we're working through those testimonies, and so I'll have that opportunity to create that question. And Dave, you know how great I am about making sure I remember to do those in youth group, right? Yeah. It's generally writing that question at the end of youth group and texting it to you guys. So Dave says I'm the best youth pastor ever. So I'm at least the best youth pastor on staff here at this church, right? That's right. So, any further questions? Okay, super. I'm going to play just these couple of videos just because they're funny and they make extreme examples out of the breaking of the guidelines. And then we'll go off into our small groups. Well, as we're doing, practicing the open share, that might bring up a question that you might have. Jot that down, and we can bring that up next week, and we can talk about that. Sound good? All right. I don't have a way to start the video from here, so. All right. Maybe you saw my double rewards text come up for Jersey Mike's. So. All right. So what were some of the broken guidelines, just real quick? Over the time limit, for sure. What was that? Facial body language, right? There was the body language that spoke a whole lot. What else? Talking about people who aren't there, which goes against, we are focused on what when we're talking? Our recovery, right? We're focused on our recovery. Yep. Fixing, yep. Yeah, completely. The dude opened up for 30 seconds, and then there was criticism of that, and fixing. Yeah, it didn't go deep enough. Boy, ouch. Imagine being that guy. Did you notice the obnoxious buzzer? Yeah. I don't know if when the one guy was talking about the other guy who had court and all that, the bald guy who was holding the Bible, did you hear just one word? Did you hear what he said? Sin. No. What's that? Yeah, repent. No. No. Turn or burn. No. Not doing that. That's not the way no. Good. Any other broken guidelines? Yeah. What's that? Crosstalk. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Oh yeah, breaking confidentiality, for sure. Yes. So, those two things. Don't do those things. Here's. We'll leave with this. We'll go do open share. Some of you are going to be leaders or co-leaders. This is important for us. We talk about the not responding in a way that, or responding to someone sharing. We talk about that as a guideline. But sometimes it's easy for us as leaders, and I know I'm guilty of this every once in a while as well. Like, I'm the leader, so naturally I'm going to respond to you in some sort of way, right? That's not what open share groups are for, okay? The response in a group should simply be, thanks, Dave. Thanks for sharing. Thanks, Rodney. That's it. And that goes for leaders as well, right? I would probably even say especially for leaders. The response should be, thanks for sharing. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a great opportunity to model what it looks like to build that camaraderie, that vulnerability of I'm not someone who's got all my stuff figured out, therefore I'm leading this group, but it's a great opportunity to participate, to show, I'm working through my stuff as well. Yep. I didn't repeat that question. Do leaders also answer the questions or share? There you go. Good. Anything further? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, everyone. We are on lesson 23. This lesson is called Give, and we're on principle 8, where we yield myself to God to be used to bring this good news to others, both by my example and by my word. So we're making full circle here. Now that we've had these experiences of recovery and transformation in our lives, how do we then put this into action? How do we bring it to other people? How do we share the good news with other people? So this is one of the things where this is so important to the recovery program, but reality into all discipleship. Right. This is where we put our faith into action. We carry it beyond ourselves, as James 2:17 says. Faith by itself, if it is not accompanied by action, is dead. This idea of active faith is important to God. This idea of taking what has happened to us and sharing it with others is significant. It's the main means by which God spreads the gospel, the kingdom of God. And so this is significant. So tonight we're going to begin to work on principle 8. This corresponding step in the 12 steps is step 12, where we carry the message. It's the giving back step. It's now that we've had this happen, we now give back in this way. So what is this giving back all about? What does it truly mean to give? Today we'll take a more practical look at the meaning of the word give as it relates to principle 8. Principle 8 does not tell us to give in unhealthy ways that would hurt us or cause us to relapse into our codependent behaviors. Principle 8, rather, is talking about healthy, non-codependent giving of oneself without the slightest trace of expecting to receive back. Remember, no person has ever been honored for what they've received. Honor has been a reward for what someone gives. Matthew 10:8 sums up principle 8. It says, freely you have received, now freely give. In principle 8, we yield ourselves to be used by God to bring this good news to others, both by our examples and by our words. And so our acrostic tonight, or today, is the word give, G-I-V-E. The G, excuse me, the G stands for God first. When you place God first in your life, you realize that everything that you have is a gift from Him. You realize that your recovery is not dependent or based on material things. It is built upon your faith and your desire to follow Jesus' direction. Romans 8:32 says that God did not even keep back His own Son, but offered Him for us all. He gave us His Son. Will He not also freely give us all things? We're never more like God than when we give, not just our money or our things, but our very selves. That's what Jesus did for us. He gave us the greatest gift of all, which was Himself. So the second letter in the acrostic is I. When we give, the I becomes we. None of the steps or principles begin with the word I. The very first word in step 1 is we. In fact, the word we appears in the 12 steps 14 times. The word I never appears even once in any of those steps. The road to recovery is not meant to be traveled alone. This is not a program that's supposed to be worked out in isolation. Jesus said, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. When you've reached this step in your recovery and someone asks you to be a sponsor or a mentor or accountability partner, we encourage you to do it. The rewards are great. Being a sponsor, mentor, accountability partner is one of these ways that we can carry the message. Ecclesiastes 4:9-12 says, Ecclesiastes 4:9-12 makes this concept of giving very clear. Two are better off than one, because together they can work more effectively. If one of them falls down, the other can help him up. But if someone is alone, there is no one to help him. Two people can resist an attack that would defeat one person alone. So one of the ways that we give, the way that we give back, is by teaming up with other people, by living our recovery in community. The third letter in give stands for victories. V stands for victories. Victories shared. God never, 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 ever wastes a hurt. He can take our hurts and He can use those hurts to help other people. Principle 8 gives us the opportunity to share our experiences, our victories, and our hopes with one another. Deuteronomy 11:2 tells us to remember what we've learned about the Lord through our experiences with Him. We start off by saying, this is how it was for me. This is the experience of what happened to me. This is how I gained the strength to begin my recovery. And then there is hope for you. 2 Corinthians 1:3-4 encourages us to give thanks to God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the merciful Father, the God from whom all help comes. He helps us in all of our troubles so that we are able to help others who have all kinds of troubles, using the same help that we ourselves have received from God. Working through the recovery process of working through all the hurt and the habits and the hang-ups allows us to fully understand Romans 8:28. It says, we know that all that happens to us is working for our good if we love God and are fitting into His plans. He calls us according to His plans. And because we answer God's call, we can stand as examples that God works all things for good according to His purpose. Hopefully, we want to spend the rest of our lives doing this recovery work. This idea of living out our recovery and sharing it with other people. So this thought leads us to the last letter in give, and that's E. That stands for example of your actions. You all know that your actions speak louder than your words. Good intentions die unless they're executed. In James 1:22, we are exhorted to be doers of the word. But in order to be of help to one another, we are to bring the good news to others. That's the idea of step 12. It doesn't say to bring a little good news or to bring good news only to others who are in recovery. It means to bring good news to all people. Works, actions, not just words, are the proof of your love for God and another person. Faith without works is like a car without gasoline. 1 John 3:18 says, "My children, love must not be a matter of words or talk. It must be genuine and show itself in action." Giving and serving is the thermometer of your love. You can give without loving. That's what we sometimes do in a codependent relationship. Or we give because we feel we have to. You can give without loving, but you can't love without giving. So the Lord spreads his message through the 8 principles and the 12 steps. We are to be instruments for delivering that good news. The way we live will show others our commitment to God, our commitment to recovery, our commitment to this program and ministry, and also our commitment to other people. So I want to leave with the verse Luke 8:16 from the Message. It says, "No one lights a lamp and then covers it with a washtub or shoves it under the bed. No, you set it up on a lampstand so those who enter the room can see their way." So the part of recovery that we are at is the part where we get to share it. And what a natural way for us to lead into launching our Celebrate Recovery program, right? Where we get to share this with other people. The other part of this that is significant is our testimonies. And so as you're finishing up listening to this, I hope that you'll begin to start thinking more intentionally about your Celebrate Recovery testimonies. Begin working on those and begin thinking about when would God have you share those testimonies in the midst of our Celebrate Recovery program. We've got good stories to share, and I think that Jesus will be pleased with us when we decide to share those. All right, guys, that's it. Thanks so much, and we'll see you soon.